The Loch Ness Monster continues to fascinate people. Hundreds showed up to search for the mythical creature in the Scottish Highlands over the weekend. For nearly a century, the Loch Ness Monster has been the world's most enduring mystery, drawing scientists, skeptics, and believers to its shadowed waters. Now, new research claims the Loch Ness mystery is finally cracked. What scientists uncovered beneath Scotland's most famous loch is shocking, rewriting everything we thought we knew about the legend. But before looking at the breakthroughs, we need to take a step back, because this story doesn't begin in the 20th century. It begins deep in the folklore of the Highlands. Long before anyone used the word Nessie, the people of Scotland already whispered about dangerous beings in the water. The Celts of the Iron Age spoke of the Kelpie, a sinister water spirit that could disguise itself as a beautiful horse, luring travelers onto its back before plunging into the depths. Another nightmare figure was a knuckle of a skinless sea demon with a horse's body and a man's torso feared for bringing disease and death. These were not children's tales told for amusement. They were warnings in a land of deep, cold lochs, sudden storms, and mysterious drownings. Stories became the best way to teach respect for nature. When later generations began reporting monsters in Loch Ness, they weren't creating something new. They were breathing life into myths that had already existed for centuries. The earliest written account dates back to the 6th century when Street Columba, an Irish monk, supposedly confronted a water beast on the River Ness. According to legend, Columba made the sign of the cross, ordering the monster away, and to the astonishment of onlookers, the creature obeyed. Whether miracle or myth, it cemented the idea that something ancient and dangerous lurked in the Highland waters. For centuries, these legends remained local, tucked away in the isolated Highlands. But in the modern era, that would change dramatically, and Loch Ness would soon explode onto the world stage. The legend of Loch Ness may have been ancient, but it really came alive in the 20th century. For centuries, Loch Ness was remote, surrounded by rugged terrain that kept outsiders away. That all changed in 1933, when a new road, the 882, was built along the loch's northern shore. For the first time, travelers could easily drive beside the vast waters, catching long, uninterrupted views. What had once been a secluded Highland loch was suddenly accessible to tourists, journalists, and curious wanderers. It didn't take long for something extraordinary to happen. In April that same year, a couple named George and Aldi Spicer reported seeing a creature cross the road in front of their car. They described it as having a long neck, a bulky body, and an almost prehistoric appearance. Even more bizarre, they claimed it carried a small animal in its jaws before sliding back into the loch. The story made headlines and captured imaginations. Could there really be a living dinosaur in Scotland? The press ate up the story, publishing every claim of a sighting, no matter how vague. What had once been a local curiosity was now a global sensation. By the end of 1933, the Loch Ness Monster had become a household phrase, and reporters were camping on the shores of the loch, desperate for a glimpse. Then in 1934 came the photograph which would cement Nessie's place in history. Known as the surgeon's photograph, it showed a long-necked creature rising from the waves, its tiny head peeking just above the water. Published in the Daily Mail, the photo seemed to confirm the Spicer's account to the world. It looked like a plesiosaur, an ancient marine reptile thought extinct for 65 million years. For decades, this blurry black and white image became the defining image of Nessie. Toys, movies, and books all model their monster on its shape. To many, this was proof that Loch Ness had a living fossil. But as the years went on, suspicions began to grow, and eventually, this so-called proof would collapse under the weight of a shocking confession. As the legend of Nessie grew, so did the desire to investigate it scientifically. By the 1960s, the world had entered a new age of exploration. Humans had reached space. Submarines were plunging into the deepest oceans, and technology was advancing at an unprecedented pace. If a giant creature really lurked in Loch Ness, surely science could find it. In 1962, the newly formed Loch Ness Investigation Bureau, LNIB, began systematic searches. Volunteers camped along the shoreline with cameras, binoculars, and patience. Their mission was simple: obtain hard evidence. Over the next decade, they gathered dozens of reports and a handful of intriguing films. One famous clip by Tim Dinsdale in 1960 appeared to show a hump gliding through the water, leaving a powerful wake. Some analysts declare it mechanical, others biological. To this day, debate rages over whether Dinsdale captured a genuine creature or just a boat misinterpreted. Then came the era of sonar. In the 1970s, American scientist Dr. Robert Rines launched an ambitious project to sweep the loch's depths. Sonar scans revealed massive moving shapes, some the size of large boats. To skeptics, these were schools of fish or thermal layers, but to believers, they were tantalizing roof. In 1975, Rines produced underwater photographs, including one that appeared to show a diamond-shaped flipper. Published in Nature, the image electrified the scientific world. Was this the first clear glimpse of Nessie? The frenzy climaxed in 1987 with Operation Deep Scan, the largest sonar sweep ever attempted on Loch Ness. 24 boats equipped with advanced sonar lined up across the loch, moving slowly in unison like a naval fleet. For 3 days, they scanned every corner of the water. The result? Several unexplained contacts, large moving targets deep below the surface. But the data was inconclusive. Nothing proved the existence of a monster. Yet nothing fully explained away the mystery either. By the end of the 20th century, Loch Ness had become the most studied body of water on Earth. And yet, despite all the effort, Nessie remained as elusive as ever. For decades, the world believed the famous surgeon's photograph was undeniable proof that a monster lived in Loch Ness. But time has a way of pulling secrets to the surface. In 1994, the truth finally came out. The photograph wasn't a plesiosaur at all. It was a hoax. The confession came from Christian Sperling, stepson of a man named Marmaduke Weather. Back in the 1930s, Weather had been hired by the Daily Mail to investigate Nessie. After days of searching, he found what looked like giant footprints along the shoreline. The paper splashed it across the headlines, only for scientists at the Natural History Museum to reveal the tracks had been faked using a dried hippopotamus foot likely taken from an umbrella stand. Humiliated, Weather vowed revenge. Working with Sperling and a few accomplices, he built a model using a toy submarine with a sculpted head and neck attached. They set it afloat in the loch, snapped photos, and passed them off as genuine. The Daily Mail published the picture without question, and the legend grew. Weather got his revenge, and the world got decades of myth built on a lie. The revelation shook believers. If the most famous piece of evidence was fake, what else had been exaggerated, misinterpreted, or staged? Over the years, other photographs and films were also exposed as hoaxes, some made for money, others for fame. What had seemed like a mountain of evidence began to crumble. But despite the scandals, belief in Nessie never died. In fact, the hoaxes only seemed to make the story stronger. Skeptics pointed to them as proof the monster was fantasy, while believers argued that hoaxes didn't disprove the possibility of a real creature lurking in the depths. After all, Loch Ness was vast, dark, and nearly impossible to fully search. If something extraordinary did live there, it could still remain hidden. And just when it seemed the legend was about to fade, a new wave of technology brought the hunt roaring back to life. By the 21st century, Loch Ness had been scoured with sonar, photographed from every angle, and watched by countless tourists. Yet no skeleton, no carcass, no clear body had ever been found. Many thought the mystery was unsolvable. But then, a breakthrough in technology offered a new path forward. Environmental DNA, or EDNA. Every living creature leaves behind microscopic traces, skin cells, waste, mucus, even scales or feathers. These fragments drift through the water and settle into the ecosystem. By collecting samples and sequencing the DNA, scientists can build a genetic snapshot of everything that lives in a body of water, from fish to bacteria. It's like dusting for fingerprints, except on a massive scale. In 2018, a team led by Professor Neil Gemmell from the University of Otago in New Zealand launched the most ambitious survey ever conducted at Loch Ness. They took hundreds of water samples from all over the loch, from the surface to the deepest trenches. The samples were then shipped to high-tech labs and analyzed for genetic material. When the results were published in 2019, the findings stunned the world. The study identified DNA from over 3,000 different species: fish, birds, mammals, even microorganisms. But one result stood out above all: a huge amount of eel DNA. In fact, eel DNA was found in every corner of the loch. This led to a startling hypothesis. Could the Loch Ness Monster actually be a giant eel? European eels are known to inhabit Loch Ness, but the possibility of some growing to monstrous size far larger than normal could explain many sightings of long serpentine shapes moving through the water. The DNA study ruled out any trace of plesiosaurs, crocodiles, or other exotic animals. Yet, it didn't end the debate. Some embraced the giant eel explanation. Others dismissed it. And for die-hard believers, Edna didn't matter at all because legends, they argued, don't always leave DNA behind. Still, the study marked a turning point. For the first time, science wasn't chasing blurry photos or sonar blips. It was unraveling the mystery molecule by molecule. If the DNA study hinted that Nessie might be nothing more than an oversized eel, or perhaps nothing at all, why do so many people still believe they've seen a monster? The answer lies not only in the loch, but in the human mind. Psychologists point to a phenomenon called pareidolia, the tendency for humans to see patterns where none exist. It's the same quirk of the brain that lets us see shapes in clouds, faces on the moon, or animals in rock formations. When a wave breaks strangely, when floating logs roll in the current, or when shadows stretch across the water, our minds can turn the ordinary into something extraordinary. But pareidolia is only part of the equation. There's also the power of expectation. Loch Ness is famous worldwide as the home of a monster. Tourists arrive already primed to see something unusual. A ripple that would be ignored on another lake suddenly becomes a potential sighting here. In fact, researchers have found that eyewitnesses often unconsciously exaggerate what they've seen, stretching memories to match the myth. Then there's the deeper psychological pull. Humans are hardwired to crave mystery and wonder. We want to believe the world still hides secrets, that there are places untouched by modern knowledge. The Loch Ness Monster represents that yearning, a piece of the unknown. In an age when satellites can map every corner of the Earth, mass sightings also show how belief spreads socially. When one person claims to see something, others nearby may convince themselves they saw it, too. Soon a harmless ripple becomes a shared encounter. Skeptics dismiss these as collective illusions, but for those who experience them, the memory is as real as any fact. In the end, the psychology of Nessie reveals as much about us as it does about the loch.